Hey guys, how are you? Welcome back to my channel, The Fallen Pages. Today's book is The 40 Rules of Love by Elif Shafak. So, The 40 Rules of Love is a novel by a Turkish writer named Elif Shafak, and that intricately weaves two parallel narratives, one set in the contemporary world, the current times, and the other in the 13th century. And the book explores themes of love, spirituality, transformation, and self-discovery in a way through the teachings of Rumi, the Islamic figure, the spiritual Islamic figure, and his spiritual companion Shams of Tabriz. And the story of Ella is basically, you can say, a protagonist in the story, the character Ella. She's a middle-aged housewife in America, and with the historical tale of Rumi and Shams, Shafak constructs a deeply philosophical and emotional moving narrative in the novel. The novel unfolds in sort of two timelines, and Ella's journey is basically the present time, and Ella, a woman in her 40s, feels sort of trapped in her loveless life, in marriage life, in a monotonous life, and she takes up a job as a reader in the novel for a literary agency, and as she is assigned to review a book, a manuscript titled Sweet Blasphemy by Aziz Zahara, the writer that she will be reviewing the book of his. The book's mystical and transformative message gradually changes her in a way, her perception of life and love and faith and spirituality. And as she corresponds with Aziz, the writer, through emails, she undergoes a profound internal transformation, questioning societal norms and her own belief system. And the story of Rumi and Shams of Tabriz, that is basically the historical narrative in the novel. The manuscript Sweet Blasphemy is based on these two people. It tells the story of a 13th century poet, Rumi, and his enigmatic friendship with his companion Shams of Tabriz. And Shams introduces Rumi in the 40 rules of love, basically, and guiding principles based on Sufi wisdom, the esoteric sect in Islam. Through this spiritual companionship, Rumi transitions from a respected scholar to an enlightened poet of divine nature, of divine love. And however, their relationship is met with the societal resistance, and ultimately leading to Shams' tragic fate in the novel. So basically, the themes and motives in the novel, in 40 Rules of Love, is that at its core, the 40 Rules of Love explores love as a spiritual and transformative force. And love in this book is not just seen as between a man and a woman. It focuses on friendship also. It focuses on the love of God. It focuses how relationships can bring you closer to God. And Shams of Tabriz teaches that true love transcends the physical realm and leads to divine union. And his rules emphasize that love is about breaking down the ego of one's nafs and oneself and embracing the divine within and around us. So the journey of self-discovery that is mentioned in the novel is that Ella's story mirrors Rumi's journey. Initially, she conforms to societal expectations, but eventually embarks on a journey of self-discovery in the novel. Through Aziz and the manuscript that she's basically reviewing at her agency, she realizes that her resistance lacks depth and fulfillment, prompting her to take a leap of faith in search of true love and meaning. The clash between spirituality and society that is mentioned in the novel is really interesting that both narratives highlight the tension between unconventional spirituality and societal norms. In Rumi's era, Shams' radical teachings challenge rigid religious structures, drawing opposition from the community. And similarly, in Ella's time, transformation is met with the resistance from her family and society and her societal circle. The nature of destiny and free will, the concept of free will, is also mentioned in the novel really deeply, and Shafak, the writer, raises the question of whether our lives are dictated by fate or shaped by personal choice. And Shams of Tabriz rules suggests that embracing love and spirituality, to awake spirituality in oneself, requires active participation, okay, and rather than passive acceptance of destiny. This book, it's sort of like, the symbolism is like that it's a book within a book, a manuscript within a manuscript, and it's like dimensions inside the dimensions, like the film Inception, Dreams. And the book within a book structure signifies the mirroring of Rumi's life with Ella's life, and both undergo a radical transformation through love and free will. And there are some certain poetry in this book from Rumi and Shams of Tabriz that I would like to tell you guys. Is that one of it that I really like is that, be like a river in generosity, like the sun in compassion, like the night in covering others' faults. So technically, what the poetry meant is that, be like a river in generosity. A river flows without hesitation, and gives life to everything in its path, Also destruction too, but majority of the time, river gives life. It's a sign of, a pathway, a way you can find where people are living, where basically it's a path, it's a consistent path to betterment. And this path leads to plants, animals, and human life. It does not hoard its waters, but shares them freely. And on the other hand, it says that, be like the sun in compassion, which according to me meant the sun shines on everyone without bias, and it does not distinguish between the rich and the poor. And then it says, be like the night in covering others' faults. And unlike the river and the night does not give. It sort of conceals the secrets. It sort of conceals everything, And darkness wraps the world in a veil, hiding its imperfections, but accepting it. And each of these elements in the line of this, in the poetry of Rumi, river, sun, and night, represents a divine quality that humans are encouraged to embody. And in Sufi thought, God, generosity, mercy, and concealment is concealment of sins are limitless, And by mirroring these attributes, one transcends ego and aligns themselves with divine grace, gets in touch deeply with God. And the symbology of the character Shams, I'm not going to tell you the whole story because it will spoil you, but Shams of Tabriz is a seeker of truth as a character, and Shams, a wandering dervish. He's like a monk who's embarks on a journey to find Rumi in the novel, and whom he believes is destined to become a great poet of divine love. His character is a symbol of the disruptive, transformative force of truth. There's this poetry that I would like to share one more, is that the path to the truth is a labor of the heart, not of the head. Make your heart your primary guide. So this is basically a translation of his poetry. So what he meant was that The path to the truth is a labor of heart, and at first glance, this phrase challenges conventional wisdom, and in most traditions, truth-seeking is associated with logic, reasoning, and analysis, and functions of intellect, of the mind, of the head. However, Rumi asserts that true understanding is not attended through mere mental calculations or logic, but through inner transformation. And the heart, in Sufi thought, represents love, intuition, and divine connection, divine grace. And the head, on the other hand, represents rationality, logic, and analytical thinking. And while the intellect is useful in worldly matters, it is limited in perceiving deeper spiritual realities. And then it says, make your heart your primary guide. And Rumi here presents the heart as a compass directing towards something divine, truth, love, and the divine presence of grace. And but what it does not mean, what does it mean to follow the heart means that it does not say that about, rather it is about deep inner knowing, the kind that transcends logic, and resonates with the soul. And the heart, when purified, becomes a mirror reflecting divine nature, God, whereas the mind often remains trapped in thoughts, in doubts, in fears. And Sufism teaches that true wisdom is not acquired through mental capacity, through logic. And this revelation of love occurs in the heart, and that is open and surrendered to divine love. You have to be in a position to surrender to the flow of the universe, the flow of God. Just like we say that, go with the flow. But on a deeper level, it's like you have to surrender yourself to God. And then by the end of the novel, jealousy and betrayal takes place. And Sham's presence causes upheaval. Rumi's family and disciples grow envious of this person that is getting closer to Rumi, which is Shams, and culminating in Shams's murder. And they're like planning to murder Shams of Tabriz. And symbolism of his death is a metaphor for the price of enlightenment. You have to let it go. You have to leave everything in order to be enlightened. And true wisdom often meets resistance. And like look at history. Whoever was trying to convey to you enlightenment was, most of the people were killed, were resisted. And Rumi's response, instead of despair in this situation, Rumi pours his sorrow into poetry. He writes, birthing the Masnavi, his book, one of the greatest works of Sufi literature. And as Shams of Tabriz and Rumi's manuscript by Aziz ends and Ella's reading it, Ella takes a leap of faith also. Inspired by Rumi and Shams's story, Ella leaves her mundane life to seek love with Aziz, the author of Sweet Blasphemy, the manuscript. And the symbology of her life at the end is that Ella mirrors Rumi's transformation. She risks everything for love, stepping into the unknown. And by the end, there's this quote, "A life without love is of no account. Don't ask yourself what kind of love you should seek. Divine or material, romantic or mundane. Love has no labels, no definitions. It is what it is, pure and simple." So what he sort of means by this quote, because he was a spiritual being, a spiritual man, and he says that life without love is of no account, and don't ask yourself what kind of love you should seek. Rumi's words transcend conventional understanding of love, pointing toward a universal, all-encompassing force that is at the core of existence, of his literature. And in spiritual terms, this saying dismantles artificial distinctions between different forms of love, and guiding the seeker toward a state of being where love is not an emotion but an essence of life itself. And what he means that a life without love is of no account is this opening line asserts that love is the essence of existence. Without love, there's nothing, without compassion. In Sufi thought, love is not merely a feeling, but the fabric of creation, the fabric of reality itself. And love is what animates life, giving it meaning and depth. And a life without love is spiritual barren, disconnected from the divine grace. And without love, actions become empty rituals, and knowledge becomes more information without wisdom. And when he says, don't ask yourself what kind of love you should seek, divine or material, romantic or mundane. So here Rumi rejects the human tendency to categorize and intellectualize love. Spiritual traditions often speak of different forms of love in the Sufi terms, which is divine love, which is hishke hakiki. Then comes worldly love, hishke majazi, and then comes selfless love, ishkeullah. But Rumi suggests that such distinctions are ultimately an illusory, and divine love and worldly life are not opposites. Rather, they are expressions of the same reality. And a person who loves deeply, even in human relationships, can find a path to the divine through that love. And that idea that one must abandon human love to attain divine love is a misconception. And instead, all love, when sincere, when felt with depth, is a reflection of God's love. And in essence, love is not something to be compartmentalized, like putting in the boxes or something that this is for that, this is for that, this is for that. No, it is a force that transcends reality itself. And love has no labels, no definitions. It is what it is, pure and simple. Rumi's final statement strips love of boundaries and conditions and expectations. And it's sort of like a submission sort of a love. And because in spirituality, your last focus, your last achievement, basically you're focusing on, the horizon should be divine love. And these small relationships and all of that, the love, whatever you put into this world is basically milestones and pathways in order to receive that divine grace. Love cannot be measured and explained or confined to words. When felt deeply, it is beyond reason and logic. He says that. And pure love is selfless, unconditional, boundless, much like divine love that seeks nothing in return. In mystical traditions, in Sufi terms, love is often described as an annihilation of the self, and a state where one dissolves into oneness with the beloved, which is God. So I just want to share a paragraph from the book, from Rumi's perspective, is that it talks about self, nafs, like Freud talks about ego. And it says in the book that in front of us extended the 7 stages on the path of truth, 7 maqamat, the levels every soul had to go through in order to attain oneness. So he says in Sufi terminology there are 7 steps to attain divine grace. The first stage is the depraved nafs, the most primitive and common state of being. When the soul is entrapped in worldly pursuits, day-to-day lives, most human beings are stuck there, struggling and suffering in the service of their baser selves, but always holding others responsible for their continuing unhappiness. And then comes the second nafs, which is accusing nafs, and thus starts the journey towards inner purification. And in the third stage, the person is more mature and the self has evolved into the inspired nafs. This is the third one, where he understands the word surrender, when he or she knows that he has to surrender to divine love. And who reach the third level feel an urge to dwell there, losing the will or the courage to go further. That is why, as beautiful as and blessed as it is, the third stage is a trap for the one who aims higher. So basically, when a person reaches the third stage, the third level, he or she becomes really peaceful in that okay, there's nothing. He becomes sort of a monk there, and that there's nothing beyond that. Okay, I'm gonna take it slow and all of that, but there are more stages to it. And those who manage to go further search the valley of wisdom and come to know the serene nafs. Now this is the fourth one. Here's one's sense of self is not what it used to be, having altered into a high level of consciousness. Generosity, gratitude, and unwavering sense of contentment, regardless of the hardships in life, are the main characteristics accompanying anyone who has arrived here. Beyond that lies the valley of unity. The next step. Those who are here will be pleased with whatever situation God places them in. They are in full submission. Mundane matters make no difference to them, and they have achieved the pleased nafs. Okay? And in the next stage, the pleasing nafs, one becomes a lantern to humanity, radiating energy to everyone who asks for it. You give, 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 give. You just do not care that you will receive or not. And sometimes such a person can also have healing powers. Wherever he goes, he will make a big difference in other people's lives in everything he does and aspires to do. His main goal is to serve God through serving others. Finally, in the seventh stage, one attains the purified nafs and becomes insan al-kamil, a perfect human being. But nobody knows much about that state because not most of the monks or the Sufis or humanity has gone through that stage. And even if a few ever did, they wouldn't speak of it. The stages along the path are easy to summarize, difficult to experience. Adding to the obstacles that appear along the way is the fact that there is no guarantee of continuous progress. The route from the first to the last stage is by no means linear. There is always the danger of tumbling back into the earlier stages, sometimes even from a superior stage all the way down to the first one. Given the many traps along the way, it is no wonder that in every century only a few people manage to reach the final stages. So basically the concept is, even if you reach the seventh stage, the seventh level, the seventh heaven, you have the capability to be corrupted even if you're purified. I think that is what means to be a human. Even if you're purified, there is always this slight chance of corruption inside of you. So it's a continuous battle. As we were talking about struggling, and that humanity is in a constant struggle. In the Quran, it also says, God says in Surah number 90, the city, Al-Balad, the verse number 4. So it says, indeed we have created humankind in struggle, in constant struggle. So I guess it is part of our nature to be in constant resistance or a constant submission. It's like a fight, in our head and in our heart, in our soul, that to be better, or if you're not being better, it's sort of a struggle, it's an everyday struggle. And I think it will end when a person dies, it will never end till we are alive. So there's this also a character, he drinks a lot, so he says to Rumi that you cannot leave without telling us why wine has forbidden in Islam. And what he says with the poetry is that if the wine drinker has a deep gentleness in him, he will show that when drunk. But if he has hidden anger and arrogance, those appear. And since most people do have hidden anger and arrogance and all of these things, wine is forbidden to everyone. So I do understand the concept that when a rule is implemented either by a country or either by religion itself, it has to be enforced on everyone. Because you cannot pinpoint a person who is morally good or morally bad, so it has to be enforced on everyone. That is why I believe that countries and religion have laws that should be implemented on everyone, By saying this poetry, Rumi says, at the end of the day, whoever wants to drink will drink, and whoever wants to stay away from wine will stay away. We have no right to impose our ways on others. There is no compulsion in religion. So there is no compulsion in religion. This is also a verse in the Quran, in Surah number, in chapter number 2, and verse number 256, I believe. It says that, let there be no compulsion in religion, for the truth stands out clearly from falsehood. So whoever renounces false gods and believes in Allah, in God, has certainly grasped the firmest, unfailing handhold, and Allah is all hearing, Allah all knowing. So also I want to share this also because as monks, they have the concept they cannot communicate or touch women, and it's sort of like, I think it's a religious thing that has been taken into extremes, that the opposite gender, I mean, I understand the concept that it's a respectable, it has to be encouraged that, you know, the opposite genders should respect each other. But some cultures and traditions take it to extremes. But if you look at Islam back then, 1400 years ago, there were businesswomen, okay, and they communicated with business, with respect and all of that. I do understand that why laws and rules were made to separate genders and all of that. But let's look at the paragraph that is said in 40 Rules of Love. It says that two men were traveling from one town to another. They came to a stream that had risen due to heavy rainfall. Just when they were about to cross the water, they noticed a young beautiful woman standing there all alone in need of help. One of the men immediately went to her side. He picked the woman up and carried her in his arms across the stream. Then he dropped her there, waved goodbye, and the two men went their way. During the rest of the trip, a second traveler was unusually silent because there were two people, and sullen, not responding to his friend's questions. After several hours of sulking, unable to keep silent anymore, he said, "Why did you touch that woman? She could have seduced you. Men and women cannot come into contact like that." The first man, who picked up the woman, responded calmly, "My friend, I carried the woman across the stream, and that is where I left her. It is you who have been carrying her ever since." So look at this concept. Like we become extremes in our morality so much that we forget what moral rules are. And it is a really thing. It's a concept to be noted that one should not go into extremes. Even we're talking about Islam in this book. Even Quran says that, do not go into extremes in your religion. Do not go into extremes in your religion. So I guess, yes guys, this is it. This is basically bits and pieces of 40 Rules of Love. This is not the whole analysis of the book, because I would want you to read this book yourself also and understand the esoteric nature, the spiritual nature of the religion and the Sufis and all of that. So this is basically a start. There's deeper knowledge when you get into Sufism and all of that. And by the end of the video, I would like to mention a poet from Pakistan, Ahmad Faraz. He says, I'm gonna, like, in my videos, I'm gonna end it with poetry now. I'm gonna try doing that if you guys like that. So he's a poet. He was a poet, Ahmad Faraz, and his poetry goes like that: किसी को घर से निकलते ही मिल गई मंजिल, कोई हमारी तरह उम्र भर सफर में रहा. So what he means, I'm going to translate in English, is that some find their destination the moment they stepped out of their homes. The moment they step out of their mother's wombs, they find their destination. And while some, like me, like Ahmad Faraz, remained on a journey for a lifetime. And the first line is basically, the poet observes that some people achieve success effortlessly, and they do not require much effort, and they just get it. And it's as if their journey is so smooth, and that the moment they begin, they find they were looking for. And the second line, the second part, is that in contrast, the poet reflects on his own life, that he's still in a journey, one of the perpetual wandering, a wanderer dervish, and endless struggle and unfulfilled quests. And by he means that he conveys a deeper sense of longing, endurance, and perhaps an existential search that never finds closure. So, according to this book, you would have to submit to this flow, and I guess, yeah, if you understand that, that would be peaceful for us, I believe, you know. So I guess this is it, guys. I do hope you like this video, and if you guys need more videos on Sufism, esoteric, and poetry and all of that, I can also do that. I will be doing that. So if there's any other book you would like me to review on, talk about, whatever you guys want me to do, leave that in the comments below. Like and subscribe. Really appreciate that, and see you next time.